4 years, forensic specialist Kasie Hines, Deanna Reasonover, has been the heart of the NCIS lab, bringing her analytical brilliance and quirky charm to the team. But in NCIS Season 22, Episode 12, titled Double Helix, everything changes. In a shocking twist, Kasie finds herself in the hot seat, not as the investigator, but as the suspect in a high-profile murder case that could shake the agency to its core. With director Leon Vance, Rocky Carroll, facing political pressure, Alden Parker, Gary Cole, struggling with his loyalty, and Nick Torres, Wilmer Valderrama, determined to clear Kasie's name, the stakes have never been higher. But is Kasie truly innocent? Or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Here's an exclusive preview and creative breakdown of NCIS Season 22, Episode 12, where the line between investigator and suspect blurs in ways the team never expected. Opening scene: a crime too close to home. The episode opens in a dimly lit parking garage in downtown Washington, D.C. A lone figure walks toward their car, the sound of heels clicking against the concrete echoing through the empty space. As they reach for the door handle, a gunshot shatters the silence. The figure collapses. The victim is identified as Dr. Mark Ellis, a senior analyst at the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA, a government division specializing in biochemical warfare prevention. He was last seen leaving a classified meeting at the Pentagon just hours before his murder. When the NCIS team arrives at the scene, Kasie Hines immediately turns pale. "I know him," she whispers. It turns out that Dr. Ellis wasn't just another scientist. He was Kasie's mentor during her early forensic training. They had worked together on a secret government initiative focused on DNA tracking for biosecurity threats. But why would someone want him dead? And worse, why does Kasie's name appear on his final call log just minutes before his murder? Kasie becomes a prime suspect. As NCIS begins investigating Dr. Ellis' murder, a series of damning clues point toward Kasie. Fingerprint evidence. The murder weapon, a government-issued Seiji Sauer P229, bears partial fingerprints matching Kasie's, but she insists she's never touched the gun. Access badge records. Surveillance footage places Kasie's government-issued badge near the crime scene an hour before the shooting. A cryptic text message. Ellis had texted Kasie just before his death. "We need to talk. It's about the project." Kasie is stunned. "This doesn't make sense," she insists as Parker and McGee sit across from her in an interrogation room. "I haven't seen Mark in years. We lost touch after I joined and..." But as the evidence mounts, Kasie is placed on administrative leave, forced to surrender her badge and credentials. "This is ridiculous." Kasie protests, but Vance's face is grim. "You know the rules," he tells her. "We need to investigate this fully." With Kasie off the case, the team faces a moral dilemma. Should they investigate their friend like any other suspect, or risk their careers to prove her innocence? Torres and Knight go rogue. While Parker tries to follow standard procedure, Nick Torres and Jessica Knight, Katrina Law, refuse to sit back and watch Kasie take the fall. They break protocol by conducting a secret investigation of their own, uncovering a critical piece of information. Dr. Ellis had been working on a top-secret genetic encryption project, one that could be used to track people based on their DNA. Torres, skeptical, asks, "You're telling me the government could track someone just by their DNA markers?" Knight nods grimly. "If someone got access to this tech, they could erase people's identities, or frame them for crimes they didn't commit." The realization hits Torres like a punch. "You're saying someone could have planted Kasie's DNA at the crime scene?" A race against time. Determined to clear Kasie's name, Torres and Knight dive deeper into Dr. Ellis' research. They discover that one of Ellis' former colleagues, Dr. Serena Vaughn, had recently gone off the grid, right after testifying about government biosurveillance abuses. Torres and Knight track Vaughn down to a remote safe house, where she reveals the shocking truth. The program wasn't about security, she says. It was about control. Someone inside the government wanted to use it to manipulate DNA evidence, frame people for crimes, erase them from systems. Mark was trying to expose them. When Knight shows Vaughn a list of DNA samples from the project, Vaughn's face turns pale. Kasie's DNA was on the list. She wasn't just a suspect, Vaughn murmurs. She was the test subject, the real culprit revealed. As the team pieces the puzzle together, they discover that a high-ranking intelligence officer, Colonel Adrian Mercer, was behind the entire operation. Mercer had used the genetic encryption technology to fabricate Kasie's fingerprints and badge data at the crime scene. He needed a scapegoat to cover up his illegal activities, and Kasie was the perfect target. The climax of the episode sees Torres and Knight confronting Mercer in a tense standoff at a secluded military compound. As Mercer prepares to flee, Kasie, determined to prove her innocence, shows up and stops him cold. "You stole my DNA," she says, gripping a gun. "But you won't steal my life." With backup from Parker and McGee, NCIS takes Mercer into custody, clearing Kasie's name once and for all. Aftermath. Changed Kasie. With her reputation restored, Kasie returns to the lab, but something has changed. "I always trusted the system," she confesses to Palmer. "But now I know how easy it is to be on the wrong side of it." Vance reassures her. "That's why we do what we do, Kasie. To make sure the right people pay the price." But as the episode ends, Kasie sits alone in the lab, staring at a file containing her own DNA sequence, the very thing that almost destroyed her. For the first time, she wonders, how much control do we really have over our own identity? Final thoughts. A career-defining episode. NCIS Season 22, Episode 12 delivers one of the most gripping storylines in years, forcing Kasie and the team to confront what it truly means to be innocent. With twists, moral dilemmas, and an explosive climax, Double Helix is an episode that will leave fans talking long after the credits roll. Will Kasie ever fully trust the system again? And could this experience push her toward a new path, perhaps leaving forensic science behind for good?